Howdy, this is the third TvZ I've played since the change battle, I don't know, something 5, beta patch 5, or I don't know, beta balance patch 5, yeah. Which basically changed the mines into a unit that don't suicide when they kill things, making them somewhat, I mean, because you can no longer turn off auto attack and then, surprise, I killed your broodlords. They're not very useful in TvZ anymore. They also no longer 2-shot mutas now with their AoE splash. They now 4-shot mutas, which is a big change. And I mean, for a unit that costs 2 supply versus a muta that costs 2 supply, it's they definitely, if they go off, they pay for themselves because they kill a muta. So bam, paid for itself. But getting them to go off has always been kind of difficult, and now on top of that, they like, no one flies around with 1 muta. If he's got 10 mutas, you need to have like 4 mines in a clump just to kill 3 or 4 of those mutas if they're magic box. I don't know. So basically, it used to be that you could just spread mines around your base, and if he made mutas, he would lose them. But now, if you spread mines around your base, he'll lose a couple of mutas and then kill all your workers. So you need to do turrets just like you did before, which isn't a big deal. I mean, you know, we've been making turrets against mutas forever. Who's to say that mines should completely shut down muta harass? Mines against run-bys mines are kind of a little bit better against run-bys because they don't die when they kill it, but they're also a little bit worse because since you can't turn off auto attack, he can just run in with 1 ling and the mine will go off, and then he can run in with his run-by right after that. So it can now, you can just completely negate mines by doing a tiny amount of micro. And maybe it's just stubbornness of me, but I feel like with Zerglings costing only 25 minerals and mines costing 102 supply, if he can disable my mine just by running a Zergling into it, I don't see the point in making them. So I've gone back to Hellion Banshee into mech, and so this is Hellion Banshee into mech. So what you're seeing from me isn't so much different. This is exactly what I'd be doing in Wings of Liberty, but what you're going to see from the Zerg is very different than Wings of Liberty, because like all of the Zerg players I've played so far since the patch, he's going to open Swarm Host. It seems like opening Queen Roach and then transitioning into Swarm Host and Fester and then adding Broodlords is like the traditional way to play Zerg now. And I like it. I think it works well compositionally, because you can get Swarm Hosts out as soon as you have Tier 2 and an Infestor Pit, which actually I think builds quicker than a Spire. So you can be expecting 8-minute Swarm Host pressure kind of stuff. And on creep, Swarm Hosts have like a 2-point-something speed, so they can get away from anything but stimmed bio. So especially if you scout like an early armory and you pin your opponent on mech, there's no danger in just throwing some Swarm Host and Roach up near his base and seeing what it can get done. So I like that. I think Swarm Host is a really interesting unit. I like playing against it. I'm gonna need a lot more practice before I can figure out what to do against it when you're on mostly Thors. Luckily in this particular game, he's doing this opening gambit, which is going to put him economically really far ahead in the super early game, but it's going to put him a little bit behind in the more grand scheme of things game. So economically, as you can see, I'm stuck now on 2 bases because of this early Roach pressure. He's doing a lot of damage with the Roaches, but all of these Roaches are not drones. So you can see his worker count being at 54 at 12 minutes is really, really low for a Zerg. I mean, traditionally 10 minutes would be 54 and 12 minutes would be like 80. But he went to 54 and then he made a ton of Roaches. It's almost all-in-ish in that it has to do damage or else he loses. I forgot to lift this orbital because I'm dumb. Getting a PF down there, getting some tanks up here. Mostly that Roach push would have done so much less damage if I hadn't made it so that I couldn't get out of my base. This armory and factory are too close together, so all my tanks were stuck in my main and couldn't get out. So he got to do lots of cool stuff with his Roaches. And more Roaches are coming. At this point, we're 13 minutes in, he's spent 5,000 bucks on Roaches, so not, you know, completely committed to Roach pressure, but his worker count to be at 62 at this point in the game is so low. We're very similar on income at this point, even though I've lost 32 workers. And it's just because he's been emphasizing army so much. So after the Roach opening, he's going to lose this hatchery, it looks like, and then go for, he's got an Overseer here. Go for Swarm Host, baby. Goes for Swarm Host, baby. And I'm following my traditional TvZ game plan, which is to, within the first 18 minutes, is to try to secure 4 bases. Get 200 unit space of about a 10k army size of mostly Banshee with 1 or 2 Ravens and a ton of Thors with a couple of tanks and like 80 workers, and then make 10 orbitals, suicide off all of my workers except the ones getting gas, and like 10 for repair and making new buildings, and then just kind of spread all over the map defending what I have with my army as it slowly gets bigger and bigger as I trade workers and Hellions for more expensive things like Thors and battle cruisers and stuff. So I've been going sprint to the late game style TvZ because the Queen buff forever ago now kind of made that the only viable form of TvZ. Even though there's Marine Tank is very viable and very common, it's still Marine Tank with an emphasis on your transition into a late game. Nobody just goes Marine Tank forever and then loses if it loses. I mean, people do that, but when people do that, they lose a lot a lot of the time. So this muta transition, even though I saw the mutas coming, it kind of caught me off guard. I made some turrets over here, and I have enough Thors to theoretically defend against the mutas. So what I did was I told 1 Thor to go here, 1 Thor to go here, and 1 Thor to go here. And if that had actually happened, then the mutas wouldn't have done any damage. But because my base is all confusing and my Thors got lost, they didn't actually spread out the way I told them to. So he's going to do a bunch more damage with this muta harass. Kind of injecting some excitement into an otherwise outmatched game. I feel like this guy probably in Wings of Liberty is not a Masters League Zerg player. And he's going to kill 50 freaking workers opening up. But you notice how he doesn't have a 5th. I mean, that's why I say I don't think he's a Masters League player. Anyone who's Masters League or above who does this much damage early on is going to take 5, 6, 7 bases. He's not just going to leave these bases empty. There's no point. He's got 4,000 minerals. It costs him nothing to make hatcheries here, basically, because it only costs him minerals, and his minerals don't matter. So that's going to be the real comeback point for me. I've had about the same army size as him for a long time, a smaller income than him for most of the time, but the difference is late game I'm going to make 1 million command centers and he's not going to make 1 million hatcheries. So and this is the swarm hosts. Where are you, swarm hosts? There's the first one. There's the first 4. So this is, I mean, if you look at the size of this army, this is a 7k army. 7k is very small for a 200 unit space army, and he's not even 200 unit space. But okay, so a low tier 200 unit space army should be 10k, like Marine Tank or Roach Infestor or Ling Infestor should be about 10k. And then a Doom army, a later game Doom army, a mediocre like tier 2 Doom army, like say, I don't know. It's hard to even think of it. I guess Swarm Host Infestor Roach with like lots of Swarm Hosts, more Swarm Hosts with almost no Roaches left. I guess 0 Roaches. Just a pure Swarm Host Infestor army would be like 14k. Whereas an endgame Doom army is usually 16k or something, where it's like tons of Broodlord, Baneling, Infestor, Swarm Host, that kind of stuff. So as the game progresses, you should have more and more bases, less and less income, less and less drones, and a bigger and bigger army, because minerals tend not to matter once you're at 200 unit space as much as gas does. So in the past several games, I've had a lot of trouble against the Swarm Hosts, because they'd get to me before I was ready, before I was at 200 unit space. But in this game, it's very different. I'm on 200 unit space when the Swarm Hosts come out. I was ready to push anyway, and he's just kind of forcing my hand with these Swarm Hosts. He's like, alright, push into me, bro. And this is the point where, I mean, he lets me siege up my tanks by his Swarm Hosts. Once Swarm Hosts spit out their larvae, this timer, this ticking clock starts. And they can move during that time. So the last wave of locusts, he should have moved his Swarm Hosts away. So right now, they pop out. Ugh. Where's that little ticking thingy? Oh, here it is. So as soon as they pop out, he can lift and run away. So he shouldn't have lost all these Swarm Hosts in this battle. I think that was a little bit lazy of him. And after that battle, the game's kind of over. He's stuck with basically no army, very little money, not really mining off of an additional base. And I've secured this base, and I'm still mining back here from these 3. So it's like 4 base against 4, but he doesn't. I mean, you don't want to be even bases with a Terran, first of all, and second, I'm massing orbitals, so I'm going to be able to take all my SCVs and trade them for army. So my army size is up to 124, and it's eventually going to get up to like 160 or 180, and nothing much you can do. So anyway, I guess I'll fast forward through the end of this game on camera lock to the Halby Man, and we'll see my struggle to get a million CCs up while he struggles to counterattack because he knows that he can't resist a straight-on push. So the big difference between the style that I'm doing here and the style that I did for the first, like, 8 seasons of StarCraft is that I have a 200-unit space, big, good army, and I'm intentionally standing outside his base but not attacking. Like, I'm focusing on getting all these additional command centers and securing my economy for the super long term, rather than just using my army to trade and then make a new army and then trade and then make a new army and then trade and make a new army. It's a very different style because your army is so gas heavy that unless you have 4K gas banked, you can't replace it, like, at all. So you don't want to be fighting, you want to be defending, and if that means defending against locusts by putting your army near his base, then so be it, but you don't really want to be trading armies, especially against something that's gas light like Roach, because he could be building up a gas bank, and then when you trade Thors for Roaches, that's a very uneven gas balance. You're going to be losing more gas than he is, and then he comes with Broodlords, and you just don't have the gas to fight against them. So TvZ late game is a big race to see who can get the most gas and turn the most gas into gassy units. Gaseous. So this is a 14k, 13.5k army of 3/3 Thors and 2/1 BCs and some Ravens, I think, somewhere. Nope, no Ravens, just a Banshee. And 31 workers. And you notice, even though I only have 31 workers, it's not like I'm starving to death. I got lots of orbitals. So good times, man, good times.